If you don't know what's wrong with Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ad, I need you to take some time to do a little research on these topics. Hitler, the Holocaust, the Nazi Party, Nazi ideologies, eugenics, the history of eugenics, eugenics versus Black Americans and the attempted justification of their slavery, eugenics versus Native Americans and the attempted justification behind their slaughter, eugenics versus Asian Americans and white men seeing Asian men as a threat, particularly during the Jim Crow era, eugenics versus disabled people, eugenics versus the LGBT community, eugenics used to justify colonization around the world. If you don't feel like looking into those things right now, I'll sum it up for you. Eugenics has historically been used as a way for typically white people to use a very surface-level understanding of science and genetics to control world populations, to determine who is fit for reproduction, and to decide who is even considered human, as well as a way to steal and colonize, rape, mutilate, and murder others who they deem to be inferior to them. The poster child for the Aryan race is white skin, the lighter the better, blonde hair, and blue eyes. It's why even today people like Margot Robbie are often seen as the quintessential Hollywood actress, while women like Bella Hadid and even Kim Kardashian, despite also being white, feel the need to get work done and erase their natural, more ethnic features to fit a certain look. It's why people like Zendaya, Beyonce, and Megan Thee Stallion get called ghetto, ugly, and are even reduced to being compared to animals. The most common way of selling clothes and cosmetics is through aspirational marketing. You want to be viewed as rich and classy? Then buy a Birkin, or a dupe of a Birkin to poorly attempt to trick people into thinking you're associated with the wealth that you secretly want. You want to stick it to the man and teach the elite that their luxury products don't have the value that they say they do? Well, then buy a dupe from a random Chinese man on TikTok who claims he can make exact replicas despite not knowing the name of the materials used. You want to be a better athlete? You want to perform like an Olympian? Then buy these Nike sneakers or this Adidas sweater. You want skin as smooth as a baby's bottom and as glossy as glass? Then buy these skincare products. If you want to smell like Ariana Grande and feel closer to her as a fan and a friend, then buy this perfume. All your aspirations will be met if you just buy these products. It goes on, and I generally don't care that this is a common method of marketing. I couldn't really care less why people decide to spend their money on certain things. However, I think there is a limit as to what should be seen as aspirational or desirable to the masses. There's a limit to what I think should be an acceptable way to market to people. I've seen an influx of women make fun of Sydney by saying that she has low-income eyes, or Down syndrome eyes, and fetal alcohol syndrome face. I've seen women post unflattering photos and say, she's not all that, which I really don't find funny. It's one thing to say you don't personally find her attractive or that she's not your type. It's something else entirely to attack natural features that many people share and push unrealistic beauty standards on women while also claiming to be a feminist. It's hypocritical to call out incel men for saying those same things and then as a woman using them as an attack on other women. Not to mention how ableist some of these comments are. It feels like because Sydney is a problematic person, some women are letting out their inner misogyny, which isn't productive to the conversation at all. Despite what the alleged radical feminists on TikTok say, Sydney Sweeney is beautiful. Making fun of her and inherently other women and disabled people for looking like she has a disability is not exactly the comeback you think it is, ladies. So yeah, Sydney is pretty, but to say that she's pretty because she has good genes implies automatically that there's a such thing as bad genes. When she's the only person in an ad that talks about good genes, it implies that people who don't look like her do not have good genes, or at least not as good of genes. I've seen people straight up say, well, she does have good genes, she's pretty, which is factually incorrect regarding genetics. People are not attractive because they have good genes. Attractiveness is random and constantly shifting based on what society, at any point in time and location, deemed to be attractive. Two conventionally attractive people can have a conventionally unattractive kid, and vice versa. Two healthy people can have a baby with a disability, and someone with health issues can give birth to a perfectly healthy child. None of that determines good or bad genes, and to even insinuate that is eugenics. I also see people saying, well, you must also think that if I like waffles, then I hate pancakes too. But there's a difference between the two. For one, waffles were not used to oppress and commit genocide on people. For two, if I say, I think these pancakes are good, that automatically implies that pancakes can't taste bad. That's just subjectively true. If they aren't made well, then pancakes can taste bad. If I say Sydney has good genes, then just like the pancakes, that implies that there's a such thing as bad genes, which is eugenics. The very basis of the phrase good genes is based in eugenics. If I say that pancakes are my favorite breakfast food, That implies that other breakfast foods are generally not as good. That's a fair opinion to have because I'm not oppressing anyone for preferring pancakes over waffles. However, if I say that white people are my favorite race, that implies that there's a less liked race and less respected race of people, which is bad because that's racism. When we categorize people based off race, that is racism. So for American Eagle to release an ad with a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes saying that she has good genes, to use the exact same talking points as a Nazi party to explain why she has good genes, yes, that is eugenics, it's racist, and it's bad. Even if their intention was just to make a silly pun, I don't think that changes the fact that adults in 2025 should have enough critical thinking skills to avoid talking like Nazis. It's the same way people don't have square mustaches nowadays, and you hardly ever meet anyone named Adolf or Hitler. When something is so heavily associated with racism or anti-Semitism, or ableism or sexism or homophobia, people, and especially a billion-dollar company, typically prefer to stay away from those things so as not to send the wrong and unintended message. When an almost $2 billion company with almost 1,000 employees in the marketing department releases an ad that repeats Nazi talking points, it isn't usually an accident. There are way too many levels in the hierarchy that have to approve this ad before it gets released. It's at best an accident built from the ignorance of a team made of almost 1,000 people who are likely not very diverse or intelligent enough to understand why Nazi eugenics is a bad marketing tactic. At worst, they are inherently racist and they feel comfortable in this political climate to express these values. Similar to how Sydney and so-called activist Leonardo DiCaprio now feel comfortable associating themselves with the likes of Jeff Bezos. The number one rule of marketing is to focus on your audience. Think about their lives, their desires, their pain points. Think about how to resonate with them. This is why people always ask, who is this for? So now we have to ask, who is this Sydney Sweeney ad that's boasting about Eurocentric features for? We're also seeing that even Dunkin' Donuts released a similar ad with a dude who's been called out for liking sexist and transphobic posts. They also used him to talk about his genes to sell some coffee and refreshers. So one more ad and it's becoming a pattern, the rule of 3. You have to remember that the mustache man also used similar propaganda tactics. Even Mussolini tried to use fashion to force his ideologies on Italians by determining what traits were good Italian traits and what the ideal Italian woman should look and dress like. It's times like these when a person as polarizing, racist, and controversial as Donald Trump becomes president that celebrities and brands will choose a side. Back during Prada's inception, they fought against Mussolini by creating clothes for women that opposed the dictator's idea of an ideal woman, to emphasize that women are still feminine regardless of how they dress, whereas Coco Chanel aligned herself with the Nazis by selling out her Jewish business partners, designing uniforms for the Nazi party, and even dated a Nazi. The second reason why this ad is so controversial is that it seems to be directly inspired by a Calvin Klein ad from the 80s when singer-actress Brooke Shields was only 15 years old. She was directed to pose sexually and given sexual innuendos to read from the script. They took a 15-year-old girl and sexualized her to sell some jeans. Immediately after the ad's release, Brooke and her mother, as well as Calvin Klein, were shunned and criticized. Certain channels refused to even air the ad. Brooke went on interviews and explained that she had no idea about the sexual connotations, and later she said that the backlash towards her was practically criminal. So, American Eagle taking inspiration from a pedo ad to sexualize Sydney and then use eugenics as a cherry on top to sell women's jeans is problematic marketing at best. A third reason why this ad is not just problematic but straight up stupid, well, they want women to buy these jeans, right? But they're saying Sydney looks good because of her DNA given to her by her family and ancestors. So why would anyone want to buy the jeans? How are you going to market Sydney's DNA as being aspirational when selling clothes? I'm black, and plenty of white people don't look like her either. Sydney doesn't even naturally look like herself. She's gotten work done and dyes her hair. Regardless, why would we, the consumer, set Sydney's DNA as what we should aspire to have and not the clothes that she's wearing? What is the point in bringing up a model's DNA at all when selling jeans? Notice how, despite how strict the model aesthetic actually is, nowhere else in the modeling industry do you really see people talking about Heidi Klum or Naomi Campbell's DNA on the runway, because they're selling clothes and a lifestyle. The angle of DNA does no good for that product. This ad would make much more sense for a cosmetic surgeon. Sydney's good looking because of her jeans, but now you can be good looking too with a little snip and tuck. Just come on by HH Cosmetics today. The first 100 clients get a free skin surgery recovery chin strap. The fourth reason I don't really like the ad is because of how weirdly sexual it is when they're supposed to be selling the clothes to women.
My body's composition is determined by my genes. Hey, eyes up here. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing.
The ad being sexual isn't a problem so much as the way that Sydney's sexuality is being used. Calvin Klein currently uses people's sex appeal all the time to advertise, and as long as they're adults, it's fine. So did Levi's with Beyonce, and so does Fenty Lingerie. So do plenty of fashion brands. Sex sells, but how you sell it creates a difference in the tone for your audience. It's one thing to send a message that says, these clothes will make you feel sexy and confident, both men and women alike. And it's something else to send a message that says, men will degrade and objectify you if you wear these clothes. The second American Eagle ad that I saw had much more focus on Sydney's cleavage. It was weird to me, and I just thought to myself, why would Sydney's sex appeal to men make me, a woman, want to buy her jeans? Why would I want to wear clothes that are advertised as, men will focus on my butt and boobs and not respect the words coming out of my mouth? The Dr. Squatch ad made sense. As much as people don't like it, I don't really see it as any different than any other actress taking on a role like Margot Robbie in Wolf of Wall Street and Suicide Squad, Angelina Jolie and Lara Croft in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, and so on. They are taking on these roles that, yes, will be appealing to men, but can also be appealing and fun for women. So as long as the women are aware and consenting to taking on these roles, unlike, say, Jessica Alba's situation in the Fantastic Four movies, as long as it's all consensual, I don't really care what they do with their careers, and I don't think that they deserve criticism for these roles. But at the end of the day, Sydney was selling soap to men, and I have no problem with her seducing men into taking a bath and cleaning their dicks. I do, however, think it's weird to use very similar ideas of objectification and disrespect towards women as something that should be aspirational to women and young girls. It's not so much a woman taking on her sexuality and being loud and proud about it, so much as it is a woman telling other women, you will be objectified and you will like it. I've also seen people say that if it were a black person in the ad, then people wouldn't care. Now, I'm going to say something that some may not agree with here, but I think that would be bad too. Sydney's ad is bad for the reasons that I've already listed. It's weird to take inspiration from a pedo ad. DNA is a bad marketing tactic for clothes. It's overly sexual in a way that's degrading to women, and there's a long history of eugenics that's rooted in racism, white supremacy, ableism, and homophobia. Taking out the white woman doesn't change that it's still eugenics and all the other stuff that also makes the ad suck. Attempting to take out the racism part doesn't make eugenics okay. Have you guys seen the movie Get Out? There's a part in the movie where Daniel Kaluuya's character is talking to the white family at dinner, and the brother says something along the lines of Daniel having a good genetic makeup for judo. The auction scene is also basically just white people questioning him about his athletic abilities, because they think that him being black gives him better and healthier genes. Tiger Woods is also mentioned as a nod to the idea that because he's black, he's naturally better at golf, not because he's been training for it. It's a whole movie about eugenics and fetishization. And I think the movie does a good job of pointing out that even if white people think that they're being complimentary, that this type of way of talking to people and looking at people is still eugenics and it's still racism. Saying that black people are more naturally athletic because of our DNA takes away from the hard work that we have to put in to get to a professional level. It's like saying they are less deserving of praise because they didn't have to work as hard. They have it easy because it comes naturally to them. Some white people tend to say this about black athletes and Asian academics. They try to erase the hard work that people put in to excel because they can't comprehend having to try so hard at something. These types of people are usually very lazy and get upset when their mediocrity is not praised and accepted. Eugenics is inherently racist, even when using it to attempt to compliment people of color. I don't think we should really be using eugenics as a way to highlight black excellence for the reasons that I've already stated, but I also just don't think that we should be creating competition or instigating white people to try and prove that they have good or better genes just for being white. We don't need to bring up genes at all when talking about how attractive someone is, and I'd rather we keep that way of talking back in the 1800s where it came from. If Beyonce were in the exact same ad, I would still find it uncomfortable because you're still saying that she's only pretty because she has good genes, and that's still implying that there's a such thing as bad genes. The world is extremely biased towards conventionally attractive people. Models, actors, and even singers are way more likely to be successful if they are conventionally attractive. So when you take people that fit Hollywood's very strict mold of beautiful and say that they have good genes, you're still implying that people who don't look like them have bad or inferior genes. You're still saying that ugly people are inferior. You're still pushing a rhetoric that pressures the masses to conform to a beauty standard that not everyone can meet without cosmetic surgery. A beauty standard that most celebrities don't even fit without using cosmetic surgery. Using black people to promote eugenics is no better than using white people to promote it. You also have to consider that if the model ever got work done, went on an extreme diet, has a dermatologist, or is wearing makeup or whatever, then it's still not good genes that makes them so ideally perfect. It's the money that allows them these resources to always look a certain way. Even a natural beauty like Beyonce, who had twins and was able to hop right back into the game. But that's not because she had good genes, it's because she could hire a nutritionist, a personal trainer, and afford the best and most expensive doctors that likely did house visits, which made it way easier for her to recover than the average woman, especially in a country that doesn't have free or affordable health care. She's not fit because she has good genes. She's fit because she's been dancing for most of her life. She practices rigorously to perfect her craft, and she holds herself to a very high standard, especially considering she's a black woman raised in a very racist industry, and she's learned that she's had to excel in order to get respect. There is no positive or non-offensive way to use eugenics in marketing, especially not with aspirational marketing. Critical thinking is a super important skill for all of us to have and use often. It was taught to us in school when our teacher asked us why it mattered that the curtains were blue. You must understand that, especially in the creative world of art and literature, fashion and advertising and even campaigning, everything is intentional, especially as there is this shift in politics. Different people and brands are going to align themselves a certain way, using a specific model, making them pose a certain way, choosing the final photos, doing their hair and makeup a certain way, making them say certain lines, and the setting that they place them in. All of it had to be decided on. All of it was intentional. The message that they send is thought out, and they are trying to choose how the masses sees them. You should care enough about whatever propaganda is being sold to you, your family, your friends, and your kids. You should care if there's a shift from organic self-expression to conservative and strict ideologies that suppress creativity. You should at the very least prefer when a company doesn't use a pedo ad as inspiration to repeat Nazi rhetoric, whether on purpose or on accident. And yes, you should just care in general about the world around you, because it actually is that deep. It's just up to you if you allow yourself to think that deeply.